You don't have to agree with me at all. And my source basically comes from exploring children. When I began to live with rural tribal people, one very important thing that I found was that there was absolutely nothing called parenting in rural tribal areas. No teaching. But everybody seems to be learning and knowing things. Like I was with the potters community, and in that village, there were farmers, there were potters, weavers, different people leading a fantastic life, completely sustainable, and no teaching. And by the time children reach about 12, 13, they are all experts in their job. That's when I began to really start exploring what is it that they are doing, that this learning is happening, And the other thing was that, one thing that I did was that I stopped reading completely. And when I stopped reading completely, after few months, my system began to rewire. Of course, it will take time. You see, it's like physical habits. That if it's left, you do something. For example, can you write with your left hand easily? No, na? Or whoever is right-handed. So the physical habits get formed by repeated doing. Am I right? So the brain wiring is also physical. How you respond is physical. Understand? So as you, right from childhood, when you engage in a certain way, will create certain physical connections. These are physical links that gets formed. Understand? Which means it becomes a habit. So to unwire that will take time. So what I mean is that there has to be activities that will enable you to rewire. So when I stopped reading, slowly, my system began to rewire. And I shifted from language-based cognitive system to experience-based cognitive system. These are two different things. That's why I told literates learn the word. So whatever you, the physical engagement that you have with letters, understand? That is also forming, it's also changing your behavior, your psychological. So at every level, what you engage with shapes you. Understand? So for a literate person, they read, and of course they think that they do some critical thinking. These are nonsense only. They have to agree. Initial phase is only agreement. Correct? Have you ever dared to disagree till your 10th standard? Not one thing you have disagreed. So don't, Then later they tell you there is something called critical thinking. That is because you must have read 4 or 5 books. Based on 4 or 5 different information you got from outside, you are supposed to do critical thinking. Because you have not got any information on your own because your senses are no longer functioning. Let me see how many of you really remember something you learned in your school. Okay? What is the color of sky? Fast. What is the color of green? Leaf? Green. No doubt, huh? No doubt. Color of sky is blue? Yeah. So this is what education does to you. So you ask children, this is asked in the classroom, young children. So they ask back, what time of the day are you referring to? थोड़ा तो उतना तो होना चाहिए ना. We are so trained that we have ready-made answers. Right, and then we say that we can do critical thinking. So this is how we fool ourselves to believe that we are better, and that's also a psychological change that education does to you. You get educated, you internally feel you become superior. It's not a choice. Superiority complex is not a choice. That is what becomes. So. In spite of all this thing called cognitive science achieving so much advancement, simple thing they have not addressed. It's a very simple thing, that from childhood what you experience is what you become. So when the child is constantly being disrespected, what will the child become? When the child has absolutely no cognitive autonomy, what will the child become? The child is constantly experiencing somebody helping, not respecting its, its possibility. It's, understand? So what happens is that the child then, when it experiences being taught, it learns to be a teacher. But that is the experience. It's very subtle actually. You experience being taught, so you learn that experience. So either you can behave like a slave or you can behave like a master. In between you can't, because you don't know that, you have never experienced it. So living in the village is where I began to really encounter this more and more, and of course parallelly I was also looking at beauty, because they were creating beautiful things and there's no input, there's no teaching, So based on these things I began to realize that there is a element of biology in cognition, that learning is a biological process, fundamentally a biological process. Beauty is also part of your biology. It's not something that you have to learn and apply, you understand, huh? So these are very, very subtle things that has, that needs more, observation. And you see, the problem with our modern mind is that it doesn't have the ability to hold a doubt. Either it has to agree or disagree. But that is the way brain has been trained. You agree or disagree. It doesn't know how to hold a doubt. And true cognition is about not concluding. That's what it is. Now this Westerners have created all kinds of nonsensical terms, and everybody keeps, there's something called lifelong learning now. You know that? When did you kill it? I mean, you look at any term they produce, it's actually something that reveals their nonsense. Lifelong learning. You see, every living being is doing that only, except the educated. After killing it, now they are telling now you have to be a lifelong learner. A lifelong learner is somebody who doesn't have conclusions. That's what it is. An educated is somebody who has full stops. A true learner is somebody is a lifelong learner. There's no, because that is the fundamental thing is that we are process beings. We are not product beings. But whole modernity is about product. So this is the basic shift that education does, because knowledge is turned into a product. That's the first product that was created. And of course, then this whole, people mistakenly think that it is because of industrial revolution and all that, Those are all outcomes of that. That's not the starting point. The starting point is language itself becoming knowledge, which actually begins with printing press. In 14th century, when printing press was established, by 200-300 years, the whole of Europe began to depend, whole meaning the majority began to be trapped in books. Reading became the habit. The whole frame, the cultural frame, space was taken up by reading. Everybody is reading. And reading, because of reading, ability to reason became predominant. Because we are celebrating reason today, reasoning ability. Correct, no? That is the most important skill that is, that people say is important, no? Have you wondered what is reason? What is reason? When do you reason? How is it, how does it actually come in the way of a creative person, creative action? Okay, don't, try too much. Reason is an ability that you can only do with what is known. Simple. No, what is known. When you know, somebody gives you information, so you're dealing with what is known, you can do reasoning. Understand? Huh? But in true cognitive process, reason has no role. Understand? For example, you learned your mother tongue, right? With no effort. Did you reason any time to learn that? Reasoning कभी किया है क्या? मदर टंग पढ़ते समय कोई मेमोराइजेशन किया? किसी ने क्वेश्चन पूछा क्या? So, reasoning is actually an ability that happens within us. It organizes information within us, not you. It's not your ego that is doing. For example, when I'm speaking to you, it's organized, but I did not organize it consciously. So reasoning is something that happens within. It's not something that you have to do. Okay. So I will stop here, and then we will leave it for some dialogue. Yeah.